Yesterday, I found out that the UK has got a Supreme Court, and wow, what a way to learn about that. So they ruled that the term woman, when used in the Equality Act of 2010, refers to a biological woman who was assigned that gender at birth. This video is going to have a look at where this all came from and, well, what this means for the future. This ruling clarifies what the term woman means in the Equality Act, and it denies transgender women access to women-only spaces, as woman is now defined exclusively by biology. A UK government spokesperson said that this ruling will bring clarity and confidence for women and service providers such as hospitals, refuges and sports clubs. The long-term implications of this are still being hashed out, but in practical terms, this could mean that if a trans woman wants to use the gendered toilets in a cafe, for example, it would now be up to the owner of that cafe to allow or deny access. And if you are a cis, which means biological, woman with masculine features, you too could potentially be made to use the male toilets by some opinionated busybody. And you hear people arguing that, well, anyone can identify as anything these days, as though it's some sort of flippant choice. Well, the Gender Recognition Act, which was introduced in 2004, means that you can obtain a gender recognition certificate, and that legally classifies you as your chosen gender, which is either male or female. Non-binary still isn't recognised by the certificate, so actually, legally, you can't identify as anything these days. And also, this new ruling means that even if you do have a gender recognition certificate, you still aren't allowed to access the legal protections of womanhood in the Equality Act. Judge Lord Hodge has stressed that the law still gives protection against discrimination to transgender people, but this would be under the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, not. Using the biological definition might seem simple to many people, but it's been referred to as common sense by many of the campaigners. But the thing is, where does this leave the 1.7% of the population who are intersex? Because intersex people biologically have got both male and female characteristics. This could be physical ones that you can see in the anatomy, but also hormones, chromosomes, internal reproductive organs. And this isn't something that is a health problem that needs to be fixed. It's a naturally occurring variant in biology. So does this now mean that intersex people don't exist, or that we have to discount their actual biology because when they were born in 1973 a midwife looked at a baby and went, boy, and then that became legally binding? The court ruling has also stepped in on defining what lesbians are, because of course it has. They have said that a lesbian is someone who was assigned female at birth and is attracted to someone who was assigned female at birth. So, in their opinion, trans women can no longer identify as lesbian because their relationships would be considered heterosexual in a legal sense. And while there are groups such as the LGB Alliance that would support this claim, they're in quite a small minority. Research from Just Like Us in 2023 found that 74% of young adults who were not supportive of trans people had never actually met one, and that if you do know a trans person, you are more than twice as likely to be an ally. It's funny that, innit? So, how did this Supreme Court case begin? Well, in 2018, the Scottish Parliament passed a bill to ensure gender balance on public sector boards. A gender-critical group called For Women Scotland objected to the fact that transgender women were included as women in that quota. So, For Women Scotland had been formed in June of 2018 because they were concerned that women's rights would be affected by Scotland's Gender Recognition Reform Bill. The Reform Bill wanted to make it easier for people with gender dysphoria to become their chosen gender. So it would remove the need for a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria to apply to legally change your gender. And it also lowered the age from 18 to 16. This bill was introduced in March of 2022 and it currently still exists. Now, it was around 2018-2019 that beloved children's author J.K. Rowling began to be more public in her trans. With it all coming to a head in 2020, she really leaned into it. She wrote an essay and everything. And she began speaking out against the Scottish Reform Bill, saying in a tweet on Twitter that it would harm the most vulnerable women in society, those seeking help after male violence and incarcerated women. In August of 2024, Rowling was named in a lawsuit by Algerian boxer Imane Khalif, alleging acts of aggravated cyber harassment. Khalif is a biologically female boxer who faced backlash for being good at her job when she won gold at the Paris Olympics. Her opponent, Angela Carini from Italy, dropped out of their match after 46 seconds, stating that she never felt a punch like this. Khalif was accused of being biologically male, a trans woman, and she faced a harassment campaign which continues to this day. So, over the years, For Women Scotland launched a number of judicial reviews on the definition of womanhood before bringing the case to the Supreme Court. They have been backed financially by millionaire J.K. Rowling. No trans people or trans groups were included in the debate by the Supreme Court. This ruling, it just seems so backwards, and it's undone 20 years of progression in trans rights. According to the Office for National Statistics, at the 2021 census, 0.54% of the population identify as transgender, so about 262,000 people. It seems crazy to me that so many people are wrapped up and concerned by what bathroom 262,000 people use. As far as I can see, the whole argument generally seems to boil down to two things. One, men might claim to be trans to gain access to women-only spaces in order to harm women. Two, children might think that they're trans, go through irreversible gender-affirming procedures, and then realise that they are in fact not trans. So, point number one. Yeah, sure, it might happen. But anyone can be a criminal. That doesn't mean that we should treat everyone in that group as a criminal just in case they are. What if we were to treat all men as because, according to Crisis England and Wales, 91% of carried out by men? What if we just stopped men from accessing public spaces because they might attack women and children? That would be unfair, wouldn't it? It would be insane. Of course it would. Also, trans people are statistically so much more likely to be the victims of these types of crimes. I can't even. The Crown Prosecution Service states that between 67 and 73% of trans people have experienced harassment and just because they're trans. And that's just what's reported. Apparently 88% of crimes against trans people go unreported. To quote that uncredited statement circulating the internet, do you really think that somebody would go through all of that trouble pretending to be trans in a society that treats better than transgender people? Probably not. And argument number two. Won't somebody please think of the children? Well, research suggests that around 1% of people report regret after gender-affirming procedures. Research also suggests that around half of people who have cosmetic surgery regret it. Yeah, some kids will have made the incorrect decision. Some kids watch too much TikTok and cling on to various identities to feel belonging before they realise who they are. Some people take decades to figure out who they are. Some of us never will. But we have to give our children and teenagers credit. Some people just know who they are, and it is patronising to tell them otherwise. There are so many treatments and therapies that are available and reversible. Sometimes just being addressed by the correct pronouns and being able to wear the clothes that you want to is enough. It's not like you take your kid to the doctors, they whip their bits off, they change the name, and that's it legally forever. Okay, so they change their mind. That's fine. Let them. But maybe they don't change their mind. And then they've had years of childhood to just live as their authentic selves. Like, growing up is hard enough without having to hide who you are as well. This is all just misogyny under the guise of women's rights. It's going to embolden people to behave, and possibly it might kill people. And my heart breaks for the trans community. To any trans people who are watching it, I am so sorry that this has happened to you, and I am so sorry that your very existence has become a debate in a culture war, and this must be such a scary time for you. Just hold on to who you are, and we need to stand by our trans sisters. We need to give them our support now more than ever. Look after everyone. Thank you for watching.